Cannabis. It's a substance we've been hearing a lot about lately, with the increase in legalization of the drug for medicinal and recreational use. But what is cannabis? Cannabis describes a family of plants that are used in a variety of ways. The most common form of the plant is marijuana, which can be smoked, processed into resin and oil, or highly purified into wax or crystals. Cannabis, in the form of hemp, has been used to make rope, paper, and other products for centuries. There are more than 100 unique chemical compounds found in the cannabis plant. These are called cannabinoids. THC, which is technically called delta-9 tetrahydrocannabinol, is the main chemical that provides psychoactive or mind-altering effects. It can also relieve pain. Cannabidiol, better known as CBD, is another psychoactive compound that has anti-inflammatory and pain-relieving effects. Marijuana can be smoked in hand-rolled cigarettes called joints, cigar wraps called blunts, and in water pipes called bongs. Marijuana can also be put in tea or mixed into edibles like brownies, cookies, and candy. Heated vaping products containing THC oil are becoming popular as increasing numbers of people smoke cannabis through e-cigarettes and vaping devices. Synthetic cannabinoids are also widely available, known as K2, spice, or fake weed. They contain manufactured mind-altering chemicals that are sprayed onto dried, shredded plant material. Their chemicals act on the same brain cell receptors that THC does, but they are much more powerful and their effects can be extremely unpredictable. When marijuana or synthetic cannabinoids are smoked, THC, CBD, and other chemicals enter the lungs and travel into the bloodstream where they're quickly carried to the brain. A person can feel effects such as pleasure, relaxation, humor, hunger, sharpened senses, or an altered perception of time almost immediately. The effects generally last about 1 to 3 hours. Cannabis can also make some people feel anxious, fearful, or paranoid, especially if they're new to it or using high doses. People can hallucinate when using extremely potent forms of marijuana in high doses. When a person eats or drinks a beverage containing cannabis, they may experience similar effects to smoking, but these effects can be delayed and often last for many hours. Consuming marijuana orally can be riskier than smoking it. Because it takes more time for the effects to take hold, people run into the risk of using too much, which can lead to THC toxicity. Today, many cannabis products have significantly higher levels of THC than they've had in the past. In fact, marijuana potency has risen more than fourfold, from around 4% THC in the 1990s to 17% today. The wax and shatter forms that are used as dabs are up to 90% pure THC, with crystals being virtually pure THC. There isn't a lot of research on these highly potent forms, but it's likely that they increase the risks of harm associated with THC use, especially when used frequently. Cannabis has short and long-term health effects. It impairs short-term memory, judgment, and perception, which can negatively affect performance at work or school. Driving under the influence of cannabis is dangerous. Some studies suggest cannabis can impair cognitive abilities. Other studies indicate that using cannabis during adolescence can cause long-term and even permanent adverse changes in the brain.
There is evidence that suggests that cannabis use can be particularly harmful for the developing brain. So this is people who start using earlier in life, during adolescence. And that's because the brain is still developing into early adulthood, into generally about the mid-20s. And in particular, the last part of the brain to develop is this prefrontal cortex. It's the most advanced part of our brain that's involved in what we call executive functioning. So that involves things like planning, organizing, and then also inhibiting our behaviors. And so there is evidence showing that people who start using cannabis early, it can impact the development of that really, really important part of our brain, which I should say is also involved in personality, in people's personality. Another part of the brain that's continuing to develop into early adulthood is the endocannabinoid system in the brain. And this is involved in things like stress response and emotional control. And there is evidence that cannabis use at an early age can also interfere with the healthy and appropriate development of this part of the brain.
Marijuana smoke irritates the lungs and throat, which leads to complications with prolonged use. Its smoke contains volatile chemicals and carcinogenic tar, similar to and possibly more harmful than tobacco smoke. This raises a person's risk of developing cancer and lung disease. Since people typically inhale marijuana longer and more deeply than traditional cigarettes, some smokers consume 4 times as much tar when smoking cannabis compared to tobacco. Severe lung injuries and deaths associated with e-cigarette use are linked to vaping THC as well. Since 2019, the FDA has warned people about vaping THC due to EVOLI, a serious lung condition. Research about potential medical benefits of THC is ongoing, but THC has already been found to alleviate some symptoms of multiple sclerosis, such as muscle spasms. And some studies suggest CBD is effective for treating severe seizure disorders in children. Using these products requires responsibility. Keep in mind that on the federal level, CBD products are tightly regulated, and with the exception of a handful of pharmaceutical quality medicines, those that contain THC remain illegal. Making smart, informed decisions about cannabis starts with educating yourself on the different forms of the substance, its delivery systems, legal status, and what it means to use it responsibly. This awareness is important for your choices, your health, and the well-being of your loved ones.